Hollow Creek Road was the kind of place where nothing much ever happened. The trees leaned too far over the narrow road, casting eerie shadows even in the middle of the day. The grass grew wild, and the birds flew past a little too quickly, as if even they didn't want to linger. At the far end of this road stood an old Victorian house. With its paint peeled and windows dusty, it looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The townsfolk called it the abandoned house, and for as long as anyone could remember, it had been avoided like a curse. Nobody mowed its lawn. No one dared to go near it, especially after dark. Children would dare each other to run up to the front steps, touch the door, and come back. Many tried. A few claimed they heard knocking from inside or saw a curtain shift. Then came Ella Raymond, a young freelance journalist and urban explorer who had recently moved to the nearby town of East Haven. She had a small online following for her blog Hidden America, where she explored forgotten places, abandoned hospitals, haunted motels, ghost towns, and the like. When she heard about the house on Hollow Creek Road, her curiosity was immediately piqued. She first heard about it in a local coffee shop. Two elderly women were gossiping over tea, one of them whispering, "That house should have been burned to the ground years ago," while the other nodded solemnly. Ella leaned in and introduced herself, gently asking what they meant. The women clammed up, clearly uncomfortable. One finally muttered, "That house was never empty." Not really. That was enough to hook her. Over the next few days, Ella began asking around. Everyone seemed to know about the house, but no one wanted to talk about it. Some would simply cross themselves or shake their heads. A retired librarian named Mr. Daly offered the only useful sentence. "People say it's been empty since the Harrow family vanished, but I've seen lights turn on in there." Recently, Ella's research revealed that the Harrow family, a couple and their daughter, had indeed lived there in the late 1980s. Then one night they simply disappeared. No signs of struggle, no bodies, no note. Their car was still parked outside. Dishes were still on the table. Police were baffled. The house was left alone after that, untouched and unclaimed. But there were inconsistencies. Police reports said there were signs of a break-in, but no further investigation was ever done. Rumors said the place was haunted. Others insisted someone still lived there. Some locals swore they saw a figure standing in the attic window late at night. Ella, skeptical but fascinated, decided to visit the house for herself. She packed her camera, flashlight, notebook, and recorder. It was a sunny Thursday morning when she finally drove down Hollow Creek Road. As she approached the property, a chill ran down her spine. The house looked even more imposing up close. It towered like a dark monument, its windows like dead eyes watching her approach. She stepped out of her car and stood at the rusted gate. Vines had climbed all over the fence. The mailbox had long been swallowed by plants. She took a deep breath, clicked on her recorder, and started documenting. Thursday, 10:17 a.m. arrived at the Hollow Creek house. Locals believe it's abandoned, possibly haunted. My goal is to look for signs of current activity. As she pushed the gate open, it let out a metallic groan. A breeze picked up suddenly, rustling the trees around her. The house loomed above like it was daring her to step closer. She paused to take a few photos, zooming in on the upper windows. They were clouded with dust, except for one, which looked clean, like someone had recently wiped it. Ella walked up the path, her footsteps crunching on gravel and dead leaves. The porch creaked as she stepped onto it. She reached for the doorknob and stopped. The door wasn't shut all the way. It was slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Her heart pounded, but she pressed forward. "Here goes nothing," she whispered, and with a gentle push, the door slowly opened. The moment Ella stepped back out of the house that first day, her curiosity had turned into obsession. She didn't go too far inside, just enough to confirm what she already suspected. The house wasn't completely abandoned. A coat hanging by the door, a coffee cup on a side table, and faint footprints in the dust told her someone had been there recently, or perhaps still was. But the strange thing was, no one in the town wanted to believe her. The next morning, Ella went back to the coffee shop where she'd first overheard the two elderly women. They weren't there, but the barista remembered her and gave a polite smile. Ella took a chance and asked, "Do you know anything about the house on Hollow Creek Road?" The barista's face darkened. "You shouldn't mess with that place," he said. "People have gone in and they don't come out the same." Ella pressed further, but he quickly changed the subject and walked off. Still, she wasn't the type to give up. She spent the next few days wandering the streets of East Haven, chatting up shopkeepers, farmers at the market, and even teens at the skate park. Most people gave her polite, dismissive answers. "It's just an old house. Nothing but rats in there. It's falling apart." But there were cracks in their stories. A woman at the flower shop nervously admitted she once saw someone standing in an upstairs window at midnight. She'd been driving home after a long shift, and the silhouette didn't move, just stood there, staring out. "Like it was waiting for something," she whispered. A teenage boy claimed he and his friends dared each other to go up to the porch one Halloween. "The closer we got, the heavier the air felt," he said. "Like you were walking underwater. We heard breathing, but no one was there." An old man with a cane, sitting on a park bench, gave her the most disturbing comment of all. "That house is hungry," he said, not even turning to look at her. "It's been quiet for a while, but you stir it up, it'll remember. It always does." Ella couldn't help but feel like everyone knew something, but fear kept them silent. She went to the town library to dig up old articles. Most were vague. Local family disappears. Strange reports from Hollow Creek, but nothing conclusive. No follow-up. No resolution. She did, however, find an old photo of the Harrow family taken in front of the house. Mr. and Mrs. Harrow stood smiling with their daughter, Lily, who looked to be about 10. Behind them, in one of the attic windows, there was a shape. At first, Ella thought it was just a curtain or shadow, but when she zoomed in on her laptop later, it looked almost like another person. A tall figure, pale face, pressed against the glass. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. That night, she dreamt of the house, of walking through its halls, hearing faint music and someone humming, of a small voice calling her name. "Ella, Ella," even though no one in the town knew her well enough to use it so familiarly. When she woke up, her hands were cold, and her flashlight, the one she kept in her backpack, was lying beside her bed. She hadn't touched it since leaving the house. Now, things were turning personal. Despite her growing fear, Ella knew she was close to something. People did no more than they let on, and whatever was inside that house had noticed her. She made one final attempt to get real answers from someone in town. She visited a retired police officer named Jim Mathers, who had worked in East Haven for over 30 years. At first, he was tight-lipped, staring at her over the rim of his coffee mug. But when she mentioned the Harrow family, he sighed heavily and looked away. "I was there," he said. "First one on the scene after the neighbors called it in. Said they hadn't seen the family in days. When I walked in, there was no sign of a break-in, no struggle. But the whole place felt wrong. Cold. Still. Like someone had just left the room, or was watching us from the next one." He paused, fingers tightening on the mug. "But the strangest thing? Every mirror in that house was covered with sheets. Every single one." Ella leaned forward. "Why?" Jim met her eyes. "Because she didn't want to see what was behind her anymore." That sentence echoed in Ella's mind long after she left his house. Something was definitely inside that house, and it wasn't done with her yet. Ella stood once again at the edge of the overgrown path leading to the house on Hollow Creek Road. This time, it wasn't just curiosity that drew her there. It was the growing sense that the house held something vital. Answers, maybe, or danger. Either way, she needed to see more. It was late afternoon, and the sun cast long shadows across the crooked porch. In her bag were all the essentials. Her flashlight, a digital recorder, a camera, a notepad, and a small handheld EMF reader she used during ghost investigations. She had no idea if the house was haunted. She didn't even believe in ghosts, not fully, but she believed in patterns, and everything about this place screamed, wrong. Ella took a steadying breath and stepped onto the porch. It groaned under her weight again, but the sound was less unsettling this time, almost familiar. She noticed something new. A fresh cigarette, but by the front door. It hadn't been there before. Someone had been here. She gently pushed the door, which was still ajar, and stepped inside. The air was thick, not dusty, but heavy, like a room where no one had opened a window for decades. The front room was dim but not pitch black, thanks to the golden light spilling in from broken shutters. She swept her flashlight around. Old furniture covered in white sheets, picture frames turned to face the wall, and faint footprints in the dust on the floorboards. She followed the trail into what must have been the living room. The fireplace was stacked with logs, as if someone had prepared for a fire but never lit it. A small rocking chair faced the hearth, and on a side table sat a ceramic teacup, half full. Her heart skipped. The tea wasn't cold. It was warm. She raised her recorder. November 14th, 4:26 p.m. inside the Hollow Creek house. Room appears undisturbed, but evidence suggests recent activity. Teacup on table is warm. Possible squatters or... She paused, unable to finish the thought. Suddenly, a faint thump echoed from upstairs. She froze. Her flashlight darted to the ceiling. Was it an animal? A rat? Or was someone walking up there? Ella took a step back and pulled out her EMF reader. The lights flickered green, then orange, then red. Beeped once, then went dead. She checked her battery. Full. The house was playing with her already. She moved into the dining room. The long wooden table was still set with plates, silverware, even a dusty candlestick. A child's drawing sat at one end, faded, but still visible. Stick figures, one of them labeled me, with a house and a big smiling sun above it. She took a photo and noticed something odd in the camera screen. Behind her, in the mirror. She turned quickly, but there was no one there. Still, her heart thudded hard against her chest. The hallway leading to the stairs was narrow and darker than the rest of the house. As she stood at the bottom step, she felt an almost imperceptible vibration beneath her feet, like a hum. Then came the whisper. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Don't. Ella whipped around. No one. Her hand trembled as she raised the flashlight toward the stairwell. She took one step, then another. Each creak of the wood beneath her feet sounded thunderous in the stillness. When she reached the top, she found 3 doors. One open, one cracked, and one shut tight. She moved to the open room first. It was a bedroom, probably the child's. Faded pink wallpaper peeled from the walls. Stuffed animals sat neatly on a shelf. A music box on the dresser was open but unmoving. On the desk, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A photo of the Harrow family, the same one from the library. Only this one was newer. It had been printed recently. Too recently. She snapped another photo. As she turned toward the cracked door, it creaked open slowly on its own. Inside it was dark. Ella raised her flashlight and stepped in. The mirror on the wall was clean, unlike the others. Her own reflection stared back at her, and behind her another figure. A woman. Ella spun around. No one. But on the mirror, a fog was forming. Words appeared slowly, as if written by an invisible finger. You see me now. Ella stumbled back out of the room, heart racing. She didn't run, not yet. But she knew then, without question, that someone, or something, was inside the house. And it had been waiting for her. After that day in the house, Ella tried to return to normal. But something had shifted. The house had done something to her. Not physically, not yet. But her mind, her senses, they were no longer her own. She returned to her motel in East Haven, still trembling from the experience. She played back her audio recording from inside the house. Most of it was static, odd, considering she used high-quality equipment. But at the moment she read the words on the mirror, a low voice could be heard whispering, "She's mine." Ella replayed it 3 times to be sure it wasn't a trick of the wind or her own voice. It wasn't. It was something else entirely. And worse, she recognized something chilling in that voice. It sounded like a child trying to mimic an adult. Mocking. Possessive. That night, sleep did not come easy. When it did, She was plagued by dreams of the house. Not as it was now, but how it used to be, lit with warm candlelight, filled with the laughter of a little girl and soft piano music. But the dreams always turned, midway through. The laughter would become screams. The piano would crash. And a door would always appear at the end of a hallway, a door she never reached before waking up gasping. Over the next few days, small things began to happen. She would leave her motel room tidy and return to find her belongings rearranged. Her recorder, which she kept zipped in her backpack, would be lying on the pillow, turned on though she hadn't touched it. One night, it recorded while she slept. She didn't remember turning it on, but when she listened to it the next morning, her stomach twisted. The audio began with nothing but soft breathing. Then came the voice. She walks through the rooms like they're hers. A pause. Then, in a low, almost growled tone, "She should not have come here." Ella dropped the recorder. Her hands were shaking. She decided to reach out to her online community. She posted a vague entry on her blog about a haunted house investigation, without giving away too many details. She shared the strange photo from the child's room, the one of the Harrow family, freshly printed, and asked if anyone could analyze the metadata. Within a few hours, someone emailed her back. A tech-savvy fan had looked into the photo and confirmed her worst fear. It had been printed less than 2 weeks ago, using a printer registered to an address right in East Haven. But the printer wasn't in anyone's home. It was in the abandoned local elementary school. Ella had never heard of the school. It had apparently been shut down years ago after declining enrollment. But it was less than 2 miles from the Hollow Creek house. Coincidence? She didn't think so. That evening, she drove past it. The school stood silent, surrounded by chain-link fencing and overgrown weeds. Most windows were boarded up, but one near the side entrance was broken. She thought she saw movement inside, a flicker of light or shadow, but when she blinked, it was gone. Back at the motel, things escalated. The mirrors fogged over on their own. Words appeared briefly before vanishing. "Why are you here? She remembers you. Go back to the house." Ella tried to shake it off as stress or sleep deprivation. But then came the knock. At 3:13 a.m., she was jolted awake by 3 slow knocks on the door. Not loud, just deliberate. She crept to the peephole. No one. She opened the door slightly and looked out. Lying on the welcome mat was a small child's drawing, almost identical to the one from the Harrow home. Stick figures. A house. The word "me" written above the smallest figure. She grabbed the drawing, slammed the door, and locked every bolt. That was the moment she realized the house, or what was inside it, had followed her. It wasn't content to be visited. It wanted her to return. She stared at the child's drawing for a long time, then at the photo of the Harrow family. And she began to wonder, was she investigating the house, or was the house investigating her? Ella didn't sleep the night the drawing appeared. By sunrise, she had made her decision. She would return to the house. Not out of curiosity this time, but necessity. Whatever was happening wasn't just tied to the building. It had attached itself to her, and she needed to understand why. She packed carefully. Extra flashlight batteries, her recorder, a fresh notebook, a small camera, and though she felt ridiculous for it, a pocket knife. She also brought a crucifix her grandmother had given her years ago. It felt symbolic, if nothing else. The morning fog hadn't lifted when she arrived at Hollow Creek Road. The house loomed from the mist like a secret trying to hide itself. The front door stood slightly ajar again. As if waiting, she stepped inside and paused. The air was heavier this time, thicker. She felt it settle on her skin like humidity, but colder, deeper. She moved cautiously through the rooms, flashlight sweeping across the shadows. The furniture was still where she remembered it, but now there were new things. Muddy footprints near the back of the kitchen, and in the hallway, a trail of water, as if someone dripping wet had walked through. She followed it. The trail ended at a small, nearly hidden door beneath the staircase. A cellar door. Ella stared at it for a moment, her instincts screaming, "Don't open it." But her logic said otherwise. Whatever this house was hiding, it wasn't upstairs. It was beneath. She slowly pulled the door open. The hinges creaked like something protesting being disturbed. Behind it, steep wooden steps disappeared into darkness. She turned on her flashlight and began to descend. The basement smelled of earth and rust. The walls were made of crumbling stone, damp and covered in moss. Old shelves lined one side, filled with broken jars, candles, and tools that looked a century old. But in the far corner, her flashlight caught something wrong. A mirror. It was standing upright, pristine despite the decay around it.
No dust. No cobwebs.
Just a clean, tall mirror leaning against the stone wall. Her reflection stared back, pale, nervous, small in the beam of her light. Then it blinked.
Ella froze.
She hadn't blinked. Her reflection tilted its head, slowly, but she hadn't moved. Her heart pounded in her ears. Then, in the silence, a whisper came from behind the mirror. "Help me." Ella stumbled back. The voice wasn't like the others. It wasn't angry or mocking. It was scared. A young girl's voice, barely audible. She inched closer, recorder in hand. "Who are you?" she whispered aloud. There was no answer, but the mirror fogged suddenly from within, not from her breath. Words appeared. "Lily." Ella's stomach dropped. The little girl in the family photo. The daughter of the Harrows. She leaned in, pressing her hand against the mirror's cold surface. "Are you trapped?" The fog shifted again. "Yes." Ella stepped back, trying to understand. A presence, maybe Lily's, was stuck in the house. But how? Why? Was the house itself some kind of prison? Then something changed. The room grew colder. The air thickened into something darker. A second presence made itself known, not Lily. Heavier. Angry. Behind her, footsteps echoed across the basement floor. She spun, flashlight cutting through the dark. No one. She turned back to the mirror, and Lily's reflection was gone, replaced by something else. A tall figure with no face, just empty eye sockets and a black gash where a mouth should be. It raised its hand slowly and pointed directly at her. Ella dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the floor before landing on something she hadn't noticed before. A hatch, partially hidden beneath an old tarp. She scrambled toward it, desperate for distraction. Anything to break the mirror's hold. She pulled back the tarp and opened the hatch. A small crawl space led deeper into the foundation. Inside, wrapped in old linens, were items, photos, toys, a hairbrush, a child's dress. And then a journal. She grabbed it and climbed out. The air shifted again. The mirror now reflected only her.
No Lily.
No faceless figure. Just Ella. Shaken. Alone. She ran back upstairs, slamming the basement door shut behind her. Back in the light of day, she opened the journal. The name on the first page? Lily Harrow. And the final line written, in childish scrawl. "He said if I stayed in the mirror, he wouldn't hurt Mommy." Back at her motel, Ella sat cross-legged on the bed, the worn leather journal open on her lap. Each page felt like peeling back layers of a wound long covered. Lily Harrow's journal wasn't just a diary. It was a record of torment, confusion, and fear. And as Ella read, a new truth began to form. One far darker than she had imagined. The early entries were typical of a young girl. Drawings of her house, her parents, her school days. Lily had loved to sing. She had a dog named Pepper. She used to hide under the stairs when she was scared of thunderstorms. But halfway through the journal, the tone shifted. One entry read, "Mommy doesn't look at me anymore. She just stares at the mirror. She says there's something behind it. Daddy broke the mirror with a hammer, but when we woke up, it was whole again." Another. "The man in the mirror said if I play with him, he'll make Mommy smile again. But when I played with him, I got very cold. I couldn't get warm for days. Then, he said I could stay with him forever if I wanted, that I wouldn't be afraid anymore. I think I said yes, but I don't remember. Now I can't leave the mirror." Ella's fingers trembled as she turned the final page. She was beginning to understand. The house hadn't been haunted in the traditional sense. It was a trap, a vessel for something old and predatory. And the town? It knew. The next morning, Ella visited the East Haven Library again. This time, she focused on microfilm records from the late 1960s, the year the Harrow family reportedly disappeared. There was no obituary, no missing persons report, nothing. But she found something even more chilling, a small notice from 1969 in the local paper. Due to sudden health concerns and structural issues, the Hollow Creek property has been closed off. Town council urges all residents to stay clear of the area for their safety. That was it.
No explanation.
No follow-up. Ella spoke to the librarian again. A different woman this time. Older, suspicious, but polite. When Ella mentioned the Harrow family, the woman went very quiet. They didn't leave, the librarian said after a long pause. They disappeared. Everyone knew. Nobody talked about it. And you shouldn't either. Ella pushed. Why did the town seal off the house? What happened there? The librarian looked around, lowered her voice. There's always been something wrong with that land. Long before the Harrows. Even before the house was built, people went missing. There's a reason we don't build on Hollow Creek. But why? What is it? She shook her head. We don't ask. The last person who tried to investigate it ended up in the hospital, and then vanished 2 weeks later. That house? It doesn't like attention. Ella returned to her car, heart racing. It was becoming clear. East Haven had been keeping secrets for generations. The town's silence wasn't ignorance. It was self-preservation. She called a contact, Rick Maynard, a folklore professor she'd worked with on a podcast series 2 years ago. He specialized in American urban legends and occult history. When she described what she'd found, the mirror, the child's journal, the disappearances, Rick was silent for a long time before replying. It sounds like a binding, he finally said. Old world magic. The kind that uses a vessel like a mirror to trap something. Or someone. Trap what, exactly? Rick hesitated. Sometimes, it's not just the spirit of a person. Sometimes mirrors are used to contain entities. Dark ones. They use human emotion to feed. Fear. Sorrow. Regret. A child's willingness to believe. Ella thought of Lily. Of her tiny hand pressed against the glass. Of the voice in the basement saying, "Help me." "So what do I do?" she asked. Rick didn't answer right away. "Whatever it is, it's not finished with you," he said. "And if Lily's soul is still in that mirror, trapped, there might still be a way to set her free. But be careful. If it's a binding, something else might get out too." Ella didn't sleep that night. The weight of everything she'd learned. The journal, the mirror, the town's eerie silence, pressed down on her like a suffocating fog. But despite the fear tightening in her chest, she knew what she had to do. Lily was still in that house, trapped. And whatever he was, the thing in the mirror, it was feeding on her, holding her, using her. Ella wasn't a paranormal expert. She wasn't a medium or an exorcist. But she was a storyteller, a seeker of truth. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. She called Rick again the next morning. His voice was tired, hesitant. "If you're going back," he said, "take these with you, salt, a silver mirror, and a candle. Salt purifies. The mirror can reflect power back at an entity, and the candle represents life. If Lily's soul is still anchored, maybe light can help her remember." "What about the thing in the mirror?" she asked. "Don't speak to it. Don't listen to it. Focus only on the girl. Whatever it is, it lies." She bought what she needed from a small Wiccan shop on the edge of town. The owner didn't ask questions, just gave her a knowing look and told her, "Be careful near Hollow Creek." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ella returned to the house one last time. This time, the door didn't creak. It opened for her. The moment she stepped inside, the house shifted. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was listening. The air was cold, and the shadows moved when she wasn't looking directly at them. She made her way to the basement, her footsteps deliberate. When she reached the mirror, she placed the candle in front of it, surrounded it with a circle of salt, and set the silver mirror facing it. Then she lit the candle. "Lily," she whispered, "I'm here to help you. I know you're afraid. I know you're still there." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the mirror began to fog. The faint image of Lily appeared again. Sad, scared, her hands pressed to the glass. She looked at Ella and mouthed something. "He's coming." The room dropped in temperature. The candle flickered violently. Ella reached into her bag and took out the journal. "Lily, remember who you are," she said firmly. "You're not alone anymore. You're not his." Suddenly, the mirror cracked. Not shattered. Just a single jagged line running through Lily's face. The shadows thickened in the corners of the basement. The air twisted with pressure. Something else was in the room now. The voice that followed wasn't human. She said yes. She stays. You leave. Ella stood her ground, holding the silver mirror like a shield. She was a child. You tricked her. The candlelight flared. The salt began to shift, like something was trying to break through. The mirror darkened, Lily's image fading. A new shape took her place. Tall, hollow-eyed, its face stretched into a grin far too wide. It stepped forward from inside the mirror.
Ella shouted, "Lily."
You don't belong to him. You have to take back your name. Then she did something desperate. She opened the journal and threw it into the mirror. The moment it touched the glass, the mirror shrieked. A high, piercing sound that rattled the walls. The cracks spread, spiderwebbing outward, and the candle's flame grew until it blazed like a beacon. Lily's voice cried out, "I remember." The glass exploded outward in a burst of light and wind. Ella was thrown back across the basement floor, ears ringing, vision swimming. When the light faded, the mirror lay shattered. The salt circle was intact. The candle still burned. And Lily was gone. No voice.
No reflection.
Just silence. But this time it felt different. Felt clean. Ella sat there for a long time, breathing heavily, surrounded by broken glass and melted wax. She didn't know if she had freed Lily completely. She didn't know what happened to the entity. But the house no longer pulsed with darkness. The weight was lifted. She climbed the stairs and stepped into the night. Outside, the moon was high, and the fog had cleared. She looked back at the house one last time. And in the upstairs window, just for a moment, she thought she saw a little girl watching her, smiling. Then she was gone. A week had passed since Ella's final visit to the house on Hollow Creek Road. She hadn't spoken about it publicly. Not yet. The footage on her recorder had been damaged by the surge of energy when the mirror shattered. Her camera's SD card was completely fried. But the journal, Lily's journal, was safe. And that was enough. She stayed in East Haven a few more days, not out of fear, but respect. The house had been quiet. No more strange drawings appeared. No more whispers in the motel room. The cold sensation that had followed her everywhere was gone. The weight that had pressed on her chest every time she neared the property had lifted. But something still bothered her. If Lily had been freed, if the mirror was truly broken, what about the thing that had lived in it? Ella returned to the librarian one last time. She placed Lily's journal on the desk between them. "She's gone now," Ella said quietly. "But I think he's not." The woman looked at the journal, then met Ella's eyes. "No," she said. "He never really leaves. That house has always been hungry." Ella asked the question she'd been avoiding. "What is it? Do you know?" The librarian nodded slowly. "We don't speak its name," she said. "But we believe it came with the first settlers. Something old, pre-Christian. They brought their fears with them, and it made a home in those woods. It doesn't just haunt, it roots itself. In objects, in people, in places like that house."
Ella exhaled sharply.
"So it could still be there." The librarian didn't answer. Later that evening, Ella stood once more at the edge of the property. She didn't go inside. She didn't need to. The air was still. The house looked the same. Broken shutters, sagging roof, walls covered in vines and dust. But it didn't feel the same. The darkness was dormant now, sleeping. She left a single item at the edge of the porch. The crucifix her grandmother gave her. Thank you. And a warning. Months passed. Ella turned her experience into a podcast episode titled, "This House Wasn't Abandoned. Someone Was Inside." It became her most downloaded episode of all time. but she left out many details. The mirror, the voice, Lily's journal. Some truths were too dangerous to share. She received dozens of messages from listeners claiming to have had similar experiences. One woman from Pennsylvania swore she had a mirror like Lily's, one that moved rooms on its own. A man from Maine said his childhood home had a locked basement no one was allowed to enter, and his sister vanished at age 9. Ella answered some messages. Others she deleted. She didn't want to feed whatever it was, the thing that drew people to forgotten places, that whispered through glass and shadows, that took children and promised them comfort. Some days, she still heard Lily's voice, not in fear, but in gratitude. Ella moved on to other stories. She traveled, investigated, recorded, but Hollow Creek Road never left her. Then, one winter morning, she received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was the house. Same sagging roof. Same broken porch. But the mirror, the one she'd shattered, was standing upright on the lawn, completely intact.
No dust. No cracks.
And in the glass, a reflection. A child's silhouette. But it wasn't Lily. It was someone else. A boy this time. And beneath the photograph, scribbled in pencil, "I said yes."